Mamma mia, my Italian homie Kyle Brickman. We just witnessed my heart sink into my ball sack. We watched Philadelphia in overtime squeak one out 104 to 101 over our Toronto Raptors to tighten the rope around the neck, a 3-0 lead in this first round series. Hell of a game. Great game to watch. Everybody, I know this is like a cliche thing to say, but everybody left it on the floor tonight. You can't complain about entertainment value. I was sweating, my hand was shaking, my heart was beating. I was squeezing my dog too hard. Like, it was everything you want in entertainment value. It just unfortunately came out on the wrong end. Toronto had lots of opportunities to pull this one and take this one away, and they let it slip through their hands. Kyle, thoughts?
Yeah, it's the 2 free throws at the end of regulation for Precious. It's the 1 missed free throw from Anunoby at the end of overtime there. But more than that, just Embiid just crushed our souls tonight. I mean, he's the type of player that we knew from the beginning of this series, like the Raptors would have trouble with him. But that's the type of shot you want him taking, is a contested step back three, and if he's hitting those, like, at Godspeed, it's over. That's it might be over for the entire league if he could hit that type of shot. So I got to tip my cap to them. I thought Raptors played a really nice series ultimately, and it's not over yet. Although there's never been a comeback from 3-0, but we won't call it over yet. But you got to just tip your cap to Embiid. I mean, he had a tremendous game. It's all him.
He did, and he came up clutch multiple times, whether it was shot clock or game clock. Don, let's go back to that play one more time. A couple of things. One, Nurse called Freddie off of Danny Green on the inbounds to play, I guess, the backdoor or the lob. I question that. DeAndre Jordan came out on the other end to guard the inbound play. I would have liked to have seen Boucher out there just generally, whether it's on the inbound or not. Danny Green is a free look to find whatever he wants. I personally just don't think you can give a veteran NBA player an open purview of the entire floor to find exactly what he needs. Secondly, Tobias Harris made a beautiful screen to seal off Precious, and actually, it was Freddie, the one who read it to close out. This was just a really good play. I'm trying to figure out, like, I think it's OG on Harris who kind of follows. He follow. I'm not really sure. OG gets lost there, I think. I don't know. Do you see that, Kyle?
Yeah,
somebody gets lost and Embiid springs loose and Precious gets sealed on the screen.
Yeah, and we thank you, Matthew. I agree completely. Matthew Combs says it's the 1 for 4 from the line, so let's all just be okay. LOL. Yeah, agreed. That's what it was. It was the 1 for 4 from the line, but it was a lot of stuff. Like, and here I'm with you. That exact pass there is why you have a person guarding the inbounder. Is that pass is like would never be completed if even Fred VanVleet is standing in front of Danny Green, let alone Chris Boucher. So kind of unacceptable there. We respect Nick Nurse as a pro Nick Nurse podcast, but I don't know. I really don't know what was going on there. Should we try to get into the positives? Are there any positives that you can think of?
I just want to see that. I see it now. Gary is on Tobias, and Gary cheats to grab the backdoor guys.
Mm-hmm.
OG fights
which
over.
Fred's
Gary
already there.
Yeah, exactly. Precious gets hit on the screen, and there's nobody to play that Embiid's pop, and so that's. I mean, maybe Nick Nurse called that in the timeout, and they wanted Freddie as the free safety to play that. I mean, really, you want Embiid shooting a fadeaway 3 at the buzzer. Like, yeah, I mean, you're probably going to live with that. Can we give Doc Rivers a technical for running 4 quarters down the floor to the very goddamn end of the court?
He practically had to tug on the referee's shirt to get the timeout called. It was like I don't agree. I mean, the Raps broadcast does a pretty good job of not being homers, but even Matt Devlin saying and he's way out of the coaching box there. It's like, come on, man, get real. Okay, he's out of the coaching box. Fine,
Oh
whatever.
man, the sequence of events, the shot clock's winding down to .9, and Doc Rivers, who can barely walk, he walks like he's a 75-year-old caveman with 4 new hips, and he somehow runs all the way down the floor and gets that timeout. It's crazy.
Don, can we
Uh,
get this is heartbreaking. I was going to say, can we get that off the screen? If we're not getting into positives, I've got a huge negative I want to address almost instantly. Maxey gets whatever he wants off the dribble. There's not a single person on this team who can stay in front of Tyrese Maxey. He gets downhill as easily as anyone in the NBA can get downhill. And I get that he's a tremendous player, whatever, but like someone's got to hang with this guy. I mean, assuming the Raptors lose the series, Fred VanVleet was an all-star this year. Maxey's a second-year player. Maxey ate Fred's lunch this series on both ends of the floor, offensively and defensively. Maxey owned Fred VanVleet. So that's ugly.
yeah, defensively, you're definitely right. I mean, like Fred was getting blown by over and over again by Maxey, and I wrote this down about soft versus hard closeouts, and the Raptors are known for hard closeouts, like running. Matthew disagrees, but BT Dubs. OG did give Maxey trouble, and we did bottle up Maxey at times. We played him a lot better tonight, but time and again we had these really hard closeouts on Maxey, and you know exactly what he wants to do. He is a blur in that first step, absolute blur off the rip, and he just got by us. And he's the difference between Freddie and Maxey, which is this isn't new. This isn't new with Freddie. Is that floater game. Like Maxey gets by you on that first step. When he's in that second layer of defense, it's insta floater or insta high banker. And Freddie doesn't have that to his game. What Freddie did do this game that I did like was when he did get to that second layer of defense, he was finding the open shooters and we were hitting them. So he did adjust. I'd be interested. I'm just going to check it out. I can't see it right now, but Freddie first half versus Freddie second half was quite the difference, I think. Like Freddie was looking to distribute a lot in the first half. He was choice with his shots, and in the second half he started to take a lot of those hero balls that we know him for, and until like that 6-minute mark where he hit that big three, he struggled.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm shocked that Joel Embiid's middle name is Hans, but we'll move on. I would have never seen that one coming.
I'm kind of honored, Alec. I'm kind of honored that you searched us out. Like the fact that we like are a place you come to troll us is like true honor. So welcome.
And Alec, while you're here, like the stream. You guys know the rules. If you come here to chill, you have to like the stream. I do want to say Precious, like we kind of got on him for the missed free throws, or I did. He had a great game. He had a terrific game. This was like the proof of concept for Precious. Like he had a terrific game guarding Embiid. I thought. I mean, as well as anyone can guard Embiid, he did well. I mean, he didn't exactly lock him down, but who I don't think there's anyone who can. He was hitting the offensive glass like crazy. Although it only ended up in 2 offensive rebounds for him, he was just like, causing havoc. And in general, just like some of his off the bounce stuff is so evolved from the beginning of the year. And I think a lot of it has to do with, as Oren said, like getting him the reps. A lot of it is like he's making better decisions than he was earlier in this year. He's not taking like those sort of turnaround, those step backs like he used to. He's like, he gets his threes and he gets to the rim, and it's like exactly what you want from him.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. He finished well. Like what really bugs me about the Raps is they shy away, especially earlier in the game. They shy away at Embiid's presence, which is like, granted, he's a monster, but like they kind of bail out when they get there. Precious and OG were the only guys that were really actually eyes on the rim, like trying to get there regardless of who was around them. And Precious, old early on Precious isn't finishing the way he did when he leaps into the lane and moves the ball over and finishes on either hand. Like that's end of year stuff that makes Precious really special. Like there's a couple times Freddie got by Embiid and he kicked it out to OG for the 3, which turned out to be great. But like I think there's a lot of missed layups that we're just avoiding because we're fearful of Embiid's presence.
Yeah, and speaking of Embiid presence, I think the person who probably feels it most is Pascal. Like the lateral stuff from Pascal, like basically moving horizontally in the court, not getting downhill. Like Pascal's entire game is predicated on like threatening to get downhill into the rim, and then he has all those stuff like those little spins, those little like reverses up and unders that he works off of that. But he's basically no longer threatening getting downhill when he has Embiid on him, or even when Embiid's on the floor, because Embiid's such a terrific shot blocker that, you know, even if he beats his man and gets downhill, it's not much you can do at the rim. So Pascal is really lost. It has been really lost throughout this entire series, and I don't mean to get on the guy because the discourse is so rough around this dude. But man, this is a bad series for him. This is a really bad series for him. Like altogether, I can't think of a single good Pascal game.
Yeah, we gotta lay off the Pascal hate. Like, I understand that he didn't play like a superstar. And, you know, towards the end of the year, he looked like he was a superstar or close to it. But at the same time, he's like our defensive core, and he played a stellar game defensively. So I think he was obviously tired. He was not getting around anybody in the middle of the floor there. And I mean, you know, that's going to happen. They've played 3 games in 5 nights, and Pascal's been guarding Embiid for a big portion of that time. If not, he's like scrambling around trying to cover. So we got to lay off Pascal a bit.
Thank you, Matt.
Um,
Again, Matthew's spending his money. He's like pity spending his money on us because of we've been here all year. Adon predicted Raptors in 5, which unfortunately is impossible. I predicted Raptors in 7. I guess it's still in the cards hypothetically. I'm not mathematically eliminated, but yeah, thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, we just have to like, yeah. I think we got to lay out the negativity here a little bit. For like Precious missing the free throws, it's just going to happen. He's a young kid. He's not there to hit those big free throws. Same with OG for that matter. Like OG is pretty clutch, but like, you know, these guys barely get to the line. You can't expect them to hit these shots. I think there were some frustrating moments with Freddie for sure, and I think he's got to. I've said this before. Like, he needs a little bit more humility with how he plays in the half court. Like, he's got to defer a little bit more to other shooters and scorers.
And they miss Scotty. I mean, they've missed Scotty these last 2 games. Evidently, miss Scotty like a
Yeah.
big time. So, like they're missing a crucial piece. Like we were talking about Scotty, I thought in the first game was their best player. And it seems like we're out here making excuses, but like, you know, I'm happy holding people accountable. But maybe, you know, there's be as toxic in the past, and there's need to be as toxic as we're being right now. That being said, not really a great night from Fred or Pascal. It was an all right night for OG. I thought OG, he still has these weird moments where he like tries to do too much stuff off the dribble. But that 3 in overtime was massive. It was like a game altering 3. He had a lot of outside shots. I thought OG had a great night,
OG
especially
had a great
defensively.
game, I thought. He
Yeah,
he played 45 minutes and finished like +1. The fourth quarter, he really like asserted himself. He had back-to-back plays of 2 assists and a 2-pointer late. Like I mean, he looks like he again like last year, and I'm like this isn't like a facade. Like, he looks like he's taking big steps again. I can't wait for a whole offseason of him doing dribbling drills. Like, I just want him to tighten those handles, but um he's really gonna, if we're gonna win any games, he's gonna be the linchpin that like turns a game or 2.
yeah. I will say, guys, like if there's a team that could collapse dramatically, it's this James Harden Philadelphia team. And if there's a team that's like wonky enough, crazy enough, makes it absolutely no sense, is like the right level of weird to come back from a 3-0 deficit, it's probably this Raptors team. That being said, I wouldn't bet on it. And while we're talking about betting, we are sponsored. If we can get the banner up here, we are brought. This show is brought to you by ScoreBet. The link's in the description. I boldly predicted that you guys should have bet Toronto for Game 3. Didn't really. I don't know if you didn't take my advice, you know, to the extreme, but whatever. Look, it's a great service. If you're hearing it for the first time from us, I'm kind of shocked because they're all over the Jays games, they're all over the Raptors games, they're all over my phone, they're on my YouTube, they're everywhere. I can't escape it. And if you can't escape it either, we're also sponsored by Scorebet on Wrap Up Live. It's yet another forum in which you can escape Scorebet. They're great. Use the link in the bio, tell them we sent you over, and maybe, I don't know. I'm not going to give you a prediction for game 4 because the game 3 one didn't work out. Do you have a prediction for game 4?
I'm not ready for it yet. I'm still processing this loss. I think you did hit it on with like losing Scotty. I mean, we are such a thin team as it is, and you saw how gassed Freddie and Pascal were. Like, guys, we're missing our second or third best player, right? Like, as of right now, he's our second or third best player out there overall, and like we're missing them. So, I mean, you have to consider that when we're like mourning this loss and getting mad at whoever. Like, we're not playing at full strength, and there's a lot resting on the shoulders of very few players at this point.
Yeah, there were a couple moments where it was just like, why is Freddie walking the ball up down 1 with 1 minute left in overtime? Like, man, you got to get into a set. I know it's like stupid, but like you got to get the ball up the floor and get going. Like, they're just exhausted. I think that's might be less Fred's fault and more. We talked about the minutes all year. That might be a Nick Nurse problem because these dudes are exhausted.
I think part of it is a tactical change. I think the score like was in the Raptors ballpark, right? Like 104, 101. That's Toronto's determined that they're not going to win the transition unless they're forcing turnovers, which they did early. And so they want to slow this game down like a lot. And they succeeded in doing that. Like they eliminated Maxey for the most part. In this game.
I also thought early in the game, especially in the first half, and they were up 17 at one point. There was a reason for that. It's because they're really deliberate on offense. They were hunting switches aggressively.
Yeah,
they were like, they were bum hunting Tyrese Maxey. He couldn't escape anything. He was in every pick and roll. That's the sort of offense they need to run. And then like you get late into overtime, and it's like Pascal isolating on Joel Embiid. What's going on? Am I fucking crazy? Am I crazy? Like that can't be the go-to offense late in games. Is like have Pascal isolate on the dude who's likely the best defender in the NBA. I don't know, whatever. I'm telling you right now, it's not Marcus Smart. In my mind, but Embiid is probably the best defender in the NBA. So yeah, we have to highlight the comment because he paid for it, but I disagree with the take. I'm not gonna snub you if you pay for your airtime.
Yeah.
Ronan Dan 1. Ronan Dan 1 says Raptors fans should be prepared for Pascal and Van Vliet to be traded. Spelled Van Vliet wrong. They're good players, but not good enough to be your main players. I don't know. It's like the season isn't even over yet, so that's something like we got a lot of off-season time to fill. This is more of an off-season conversation, but we'll get back to this, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say that like we do forget that this is not a complete team yet. Like the philosophy all year, and I think for the next 2 to 3 years, is that we're actually not going to have a singular superstar. Like we're going to hope that one of our guys hits that level, but that even if they don't, we're going to excel because we have like 6, 7 guys who can play at a very high level at any time. And if Pascal and Freddie have hit their ceilings, they're damn good ceilings. And then if you have OG and Precious and Scotty and maybe Gary fill the ranks and become also damn good players, this team is going to be awfully threatening. So I understand the like look, I was big on the DeMar DeRozan trade wagon. I felt like we hit our ceiling with those guys, and I wanted to see him go. And so I'm not like the sentimental type that's going to defend down to the grave on some of these guys, but I just don't think we've hit our maxed out potential. I feel like with that Raptors team, we maxed out our potential, and we still got lots more to come in the next couple of years, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's just impossible to say. I will say there might be an argument for like turning the handing the proverbial keys over to Scotty sooner rather than later, because it's like, hey, we know what the ceiling of this team is with Fred and Pascal as the drivers, but man, I'm not in the mood to talk about it. We're so far down the line, like I got no idea. So I think maybe should we just look ahead? I guess we got to do
Well,
Taxman,
I mean, do you want to talk
the
about?
saddest Taxman of the year.
I want to go back to the pick and roll stuff. Like this has been a running theme throughout the year where we tactically go away from what works. And I think, you know, I think I think players who become leaders who aren't the most talented misunderstand their roles, right? Like Freddie, Freddie and Pascal, like particularly Freddie, like think that because they're the leaders, it's fourth quarter, it's my time to shine, let's go. And and maybe that's true, but like we got to stick to what works. And like OG exploiting Harden, for example, was what works. And then we
Worked
went
like
away from him.
crazy well.
Or
Worked
like spamming the pick and roll early and getting Embiid all the way out and finding those baseline cutters or finding the open shooters. That worked really well early on. And we just didn't go back to that stuff. And I mean, some guys, sometimes the adrenaline's running or your exhaustion kicks in and you're not thinking like thoughtfully. That's on Nurse as well. And like that's Freddie being tired and Pascal being tired, where they're not taking the initiative and doing what's proper at the time. Whatever it is, it's happened before, and it's happened, and it happened tonight. And like that's the tragedy of this is like I'd like to go back to the play-by-play and see how many possessions we just basically frinked up because there was nothing juicy going on.
Yeah, and it's like these late game possessions are just pure like flatten the floor out isolations. Like it's not even like uh, I think it's a Nurse problem. I can't even remember. I don't think this was the case in 2019, but I do remember there being a ton of Kawhi isolations late, and it was like honestly, like run like a hammer, run any sort of set for Gary, try to get something going, call a single play because like if the alternative is like a Siakam isolation on Embiid or like a never-ending Van Vliet possession, it's just not sustainable. It's just can't be how you run late game offense. It's not your best option. So
Yeah.
I think there needs to be play calls. Good coaches make play calls down the stretch. Steve Kerr with that Warriors team was like calling specific like elevator plays with like 1 minute left in the NBA finals and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's like I get that. Okay, whatever. Not every team could be like that, but like seriously, you got to have some type of play.
Let's get Bill Belichick in the box.
Exactly.
Top Shot. Good to see you again. I don't feel like I've seen you around lately.
He's only here when we suffer. He's only here when we're in absolute pain.
Schadenfreude. We talked about this at the beginning of the show, so you can check that out. But yeah, I agree. The choice, and you saw Nurse yell at Freddie to do it. The choice to go free safety would surprise me. It's not what I would have done. I would have thrown in our biggest body, even Thad. But anyway, whatever. We relitigated that, so you can go check that out. Wasn't the move I would have done, but I'm no NBA coach.
I'm tempted to get this conversation going just so I could do it. I told you so, but we won't. We'll move on. We should do Taxman.
Dude's injured.
We should do Taxman.
He's played well.
We should do Taxman. I have no strong feelings either way. I think probably.
Okay, Taxman of the night. Don, give us your Taxman of the night because I don't think Kyle or I are in any condition to award a Taxman right now.
Oh, he's gonna type. Is he typing or is he's gonna? Okay. Well, I would personally say I'll go with Achua. I think he had a terrific game. I know he missed the free throws, but if we're holding free throws against people, OG missed the more crucial free throw. So,
That's the way to choose a Taxman. Who missed the more
the
important
most crucial free throw?
I mean, Precious hits those two free throws. This game's probably over. So I don't know about that, but I think OG won it last game, so I'm happy to give it to Precious. Man, he was 9 for 11, 2 for 2 from 3. He missed 2 free throws. He had 6 boards. 2 of those were offensive, which like our offensive rebounding kicked up again, which is nice to see. He played excellent defense, and he had 4 turnovers, unfortunately. But he was a plus. He was a team best +2, unless you count Boucher, who was +7 in 17 minutes, or Flynn, who was +4 in 7 minutes. So congratulations, Precious Achua. It might be the second last Can-Am Taxman of the year. God willing, it's not, but you never know. it was well deserved. We needed somebody to step up, and it was Precious tonight. So well done, Precious Achua, Can-Am Taxman of the night. CanAmTax.com is our sponsor this year. Our boy VJ Verma will hook you up with some tax wisdom for your own personal taxes or for your small business, whatever needs you got. Tell them Raptors Republic sent you. Maybe he'll give you £1. Maybe he'll mope about Gary Trent Jr.'s three-point shooting percentage. I don't know. But go check him out. Let him know we sent you. Kyle, what were your thoughts on our defensive changes?
Yeah, I think they worked early, and I'm not sure if that's necessarily because we were tiring Embiid out on the offensive end or whatever it was. But he had what 5 first half points Embiid did. Part of that was the double teams. Part of that was they were just like they had him basically like running his ass off on the offensive end. Like we had, I think in many ways, they're like a good defense is a good offense on Embiid. You just got to tire the dude out. And in the third quarter, Embiid had his hands like grabbing the shorts. He was like, settling for a lot of threes. And I think a lot of that was that we were working him on the perimeter on offense. So to me, I don't know if the changes were, I can't even point to like a single significant change. They didn't go to anything they hadn't gone to before. Then they went zone a few times in weird moments. But other than that, I think the biggest change is that Embiid actually had to work on the other end and was tired. It's clearly not at the end.
I think one thing I noticed it with Harden, and I saw it mentioned on Twitter by, I forget his name, apologies, but was that the Raptors were sending help a little bit later. And you saw blow-bys by Maxey on Freddie, and there was this empty backcourt. And that's when your defense goes awry. You hopefully don't want to just get a single beat right to the rim. Harden, too, same thing. And I think part of that is the Raptors decided to help later. And sometimes that meant that they didn't help at all because they were too late. But if you help later, what happens is the driver gets into the lane late, or Embiid gets somewhere late, and then when they're looking to do the kick out, which Philly's been very good at, they've been finding those corners really well. The Raptors are able to rotate better. When they're helping earlier, there's an immediate kick, and then boom, another pass, and it's an easy three from the corner. So I think that was one change that they made, which was just being like more thoughtful on when they help, who they help on, and at what times. Philly missed some of their threes, which also always helps the defense.
Yeah, I do agree with you. Like it was positive in the sense that they were able to close it to the corners more effectively. The negative was obviously there's so many times when either Harden or Maxey are completely just like blowing by, like Roadrunner cloud of dust style, blowing by a Toronto guard on the perimeter and just like a walking into a wide open paint, like no one within 10 feet type of thing. So it was rough. I wanted to ask you about the zone, Philly zone, specifically Toronto offensively. It felt like they were getting the ball to the nail, which is the first step to being zone. But after that, like there was no cutting, there was no movement, there was nothing. They had no ability to beat the zone, and it really killed their offense for long stretches in the second and third quarter. Like the reason Philly got back in the second quarter from a 17-point deficit is because the Raptors couldn't solve the zone. I mean, like what went wrong? To me, it was a movement issue.
Yeah, I think they were hopeful that that's Pascal's cook zone, right? And he just struggled to. I think he was a little bit hesitant to shoot that jumper. Like it wasn't falling, and I think he was getting he wanted to get something into the lane, and he wasn't, and he was dribbling around, and they were reading his spin quite well too. So I think he felt a little bit unnerved, and everybody else was watching and waiting for him to do something, and nothing happened. So yeah, I think beating a zone is like there's three things with the 2-3 zone. There's three things you got to do. One is get it to the high post, which they did. Two is moving the ball to get that zone out of sorts, and three is finding the open shooter to really exploit the zone. And we did an okay job. I think overall we handled the zone better than we have against other teams this season.
I
But
think also worth noting 4 even is like when you find a shooter who has 5 feet of space instead of 10 feet of wide open space, you got to just take the shot. A lot of
yeah,
guys were getting the ball not in shooting position, meaning like their knees aren't bent. They're basically getting the ball like standing up like an NPC in a video game, and like it's like you need to have your knees bent, you need to have your hands ready, you need to be in like a shooting stance, ready to shoot the ball, and that wasn't the case. Like guys were like picking up the ball like and then considering shooting, jabbing, and then recycling the possession. Just didn't work.
can we whine about the refs tonight, or are you happy with it?
I thought if anything, it was a pro Toronto whistle, especially in the first half.
I mean, I wouldn't call it pro. I would call it like appropriate refereeing.
Which would by our standards is pro Toronto.
But I mean that whistle started to go in the second half again. There were some awful calls, man. That OG strip was the call was
Yeah, that was rough.
so late, and the strip was so clean.
Can we talk about what the hell is the theory that both coaches, in fact, almost every NBA coach seems to have no idea how to use their challenges? What like okay, you want to save it for a high pressure situation at the end of the game, but then there's so many instances like tonight, and honestly, a lot of the challenges that Nick Nurse uses late in games is basically like challenging plays that they have no chance in hell being overturned because he saved the challenge too late, and it's like, oh well, they're 20 seconds in the game, might as well use this challenge in order to otherwise I can't take the challenge home with me. Dude, use the challenge. I don't care if it's in the like 1 minute into the third quarter. If it's an overturnable play, you need to use the challenge then. If you have a play that you are certain you can overturn, that's
Yeah,
the purpose of the challenge. Overturn it then.
I'll get to that. First of all, I just want to address this. I'm not excusing the game because of the refs, but the last 2 games have been truly bad. Joel Embiid is a joke of a flopper, and Harden, like Arden, it creates fouls and borderline causes offensive fouls, and like they weren't getting the called in the first 2 games, and I'm just asking how we feel about it in this game. I think in the second half it was very noticeable that there were calls that the refs were not like we're calling that were bullshit. But yeah, whatever, bro. I agree. But to your point, my rule is can you save or gain points from the challenge? Like to me, that's whether that's in the first quarter or the fourth quarter. Like if you think for sure you can stop 2 points or gain 2 points, then you should use the challenge or foul trouble. Like and sometimes you got to do that as well. But like yeah, I agree. I think saving it, I understand the idea behind it, but I think ultimately 2 points is 2 points, whether you can get it now or later.
Yeah, exactly. Like whatever. It's frustrating. I think it'll be solved. Like in football has challenges, they have it completely solved. And there are like specific, I'm sure their coaches come into the off season, have like the analytics guys walk over like this is when you should take challenges, et cetera, et cetera. It's just taking a while for the NBA to adjust. The system's only been in place for a couple of years. So
Yeah.
we'll see. Is there anything else we need to talk about? I mean, this is we got a lot.
Very
It's cooking in here. We got a lot of people in here, but guys, we're depressed. We're
very
sad. This is
quickly,
done.
how did you feel about the Birch minutes?
You know what? You need a guy. If you're just the strategy on Embiid is to just bring double teams anyway. You need a guy who's strong enough to like stop Embiid from getting instantly to the hoop. So I thought Birch was really good as basically like uh, a wall. Even if he's just 5 fouls and a guy who can like lean up against Joel Embiid enough so that Embiid doesn't get to the hoop before a double team can come. So I thought, offensively, especially, I don't ever want to see Birch spacing to the corner. He should always be in the dunker spot or setting a screen. I don't know why they ever have Birch in the corner on offense, but defensively, like you just need a dude who can like hold up. And I think if you compare, like he was a -2 tonight. Siakam was a -4. Thad Young was a -9. I know you don't want to hear that. Gary Trent Jr. was a -7. Van Vliet was a -7. Like Birch didn't. It's not like he killed them tonight. He wasn't like the worst player in the team tonight. He's just a dude who takes 5 fouls.
Yeah, I was okay with Birch defensively, but I mean offensively it just kills us, right?
But
Like
what do they use him for? Like, I don't get why they use him in the corner like that. What's the point? What's the purpose of using him in the corner? It's because they need to have like these Siakam isolations in the middle of the floor against Embiid, and so you use your personnel that way. Like you want Ken Birch in the corner so that we have the privilege of having Siakam isolated on Embiid in the middle of the floor, which didn't work anyway. Hasn't worked all series. It's just we've talked about this all year. It's a misallocation of resources as like on offense. It's like you have guys who are not riding the hot hand. You have dudes taking shots that shouldn't be taking shots, and now you have Ken Birch like basically being like a floor spacer in the corner. For what reason? I never got that.
But I mean, and that's the thing is like he's got to run the baseline like Precious does. He's got to find open space.
Exactly.
But the problem is he doesn't even finish when like he gets those opportunities.
He had a nice little pass to Gary though. I did like the little like sort of dump off pass to Gary. That was fun.
He's very much an underrated passer. Like when he gets the ball and like kicks it out, but he's kind of gone away from that, and I think they want him to try and finish, and he can't. And so that's like the struggle with him. But defensively, he did fine. They called him a couple times for getting his hands in there, and Embiid will just eat you alive if you put your hands on him.
But he was on Embiid, like, you know, it's sort of short-sighted to just look at like the raw numbers. But I think if you look at just the first half numbers with Birch on as the primary defender on Embiid, if you can like really assign like primary defender status to anyone on Embiid, because the Raptors are constantly doubling him.
Yeah.
I think if you look at those numbers, I think Birch did a pretty good job. Like I think Embiid had what? Embiid had 5 points in the first half. Am I wrong? Like Birch was doing a great job. I'm with you. He kills them offensively, but like sometimes you need a guy who just can hold Embiid off. So I mean, I've always been a Ken Birch supporter. I get that, but like, I just don't understand what the alternative was. It's not like a Chu already played 36 minutes. I don't know who else you can throw out there. They just don't have the bodies. Let's do some questions, guys. If you have questions, throw them in the chat. They don't have the bodies. P is back from his ban. Why won't Nick bench Fred VanVleet? Because I do think he needs to be out there. Don, you must highlight this. Because I know I didn't, and I'm assuming A didn't.
I did.
I think he needs to be out there because he's, in theory, a good floor spacer, even though he shot 20% from 3 tonight, 2 for 10. But I think he needs to be out there, like, just not in the same capacity he is. If I'm Nurse, especially this offseason, I think the priority has to be, like, talking to Fred and saying, like, hey, man, we love you. You can't be the guy. Like, you cannot be the number one guy on this team. It's just never worked, and it hasn't worked. We were talking like in Brooklyn, that game in Brooklyn in November, like, oh, how come Fred took the last shot, like driving into traffic, and it's like nothing's changed all year. The entire year we've had the same conversation. It's like Fred should not be the closing guy.
I don't mean to insult you, P, but like if you're asking why Freddie should be off the floor, then I don't think you're really understanding like how important Fred is to this team.
Yeah, he needs to play.
Like, yeah, like I understand he's hobbled and like one-on-one defensively he's struggling. Although that's like an easy shift if you just take him off of Maxey and put him somewhere else, but whatever. And offensively, he's not doing everything I want him, but like that dude's team defense is elite. And like the way in which, like you saw how Thad Young, it took him a while, or even Scotty Barnes, it took them a while to adjust to how complicated this defensive scheme is. Freddie is like him and Pascal and I guess OG are like top tier, like excellent high IQ defenders in this system. And like you just need them. And you see how Flynn becomes like a little like cute little like cornichon like on the floor. Like he's just like he gets bowled over. Freddie doesn't because he's strong as hell. And like
What'd you call Flynn? You call him a cornichon?
Like a little pickle, you know, like those little like
yeah, the cornichon
like cocktail pickle.
He's like a little pickled pit.
Yeah, and Freddie's like one of those big dill pickles, like Bubba. What are the Bubbies like pickles? You know, like
yeah. The ones they give you in a deli, and they won't even give you the full pickle. They like slice it into quarters. And he's our team
leader, and he does hit big shots, and he just needs to like. We just need to settle him in more. I think Nick's gonna ride or die with him, and then we talk about him.
He needs to be out there. I'm sorry. We can move on because we spent already like too much time on this, but he needs to be out there. My thing was like not in the capacity he currently is. Is Nick Nurse being out coached by Doc this series?
No, I mean, like Philadelphia has the MVP of the league. Like, what do you want? Like, it's not that hard to coach. Like, they're not really doing. I mean, they're obviously doing enough to win, and they're doing it well. They're executing well, but this just comes down to Harden and Embiid being like very, very good players and scoring, particularly in this game, scoring when it matters. I don't know that it's like being out coached per se.
I think my gripe with Nurse is that he ran these dudes into the ground the regular season for a lot of the time for no reason. Like he had Pascal playing 40 minutes in games they either lost or won by 20. It's like, man, come on, we can do better than this. But yeah, like the Sixers just have more talent. They have the MVP of the league. They have another former MVP. They have Maxey, who's come out of nowhere. So to me, no, I wouldn't say Nurse got out coached. It's just the Raptors in general got outskilled. Why'd we see very little Chris? I've got no answer. I think
Yeah, good
maybe
question.
they needed the spacing, but it's not like Chris is a terrible shooter. I think Chris is probably a worse shooter than any of the other guys they had on the floor to close. But I don't know. I especially on that inbound, like where was he?
Yeah, Boucher had a pretty good game. I would have liked to see more of him. I think like he's been the guy that's been able to guard wings and guards to some degree and then like give you the size on the boards and stuff. But there isn't room for him. I don't know who you would have taken off at the end there. Maybe Gary. I think
Yeah,
Gary kind of figured off.
like P, you getting too much attention here, man. Like what Fred's fault? Like why don't okay? Can you guard a Fred and or
It
could you
wasn't
guard a
Fred's
Joel
fault.
Embiid? Could you guard a Joel Embiid shot?
It
And
wasn't
even if
Fred's
you're a
fault.
tall guy, you're not going to contest that P. Let's be realistic.
Look, I'm not defending Fred to the bone here. In fact, if you've been listening, I criticized a lot of what he did tonight. But Nurse asked him to sit in the middle of the key. You can go back and watch. He directs him away from the inbounder to go to the paint, and then be the free safety. And he reads the play and closes out on Joel all the way across the floor. So like, I don't know how you blame him for that.
Is there any C that plays defense the way Nurse coaches, not man C can switch the way he wants?
I mean,
Is
Precious
there?
pretty much played the
Yeah,
way we
it's
wanted
Precious.
to.
He's on the team. I actually don't think the center conversation was so overblown in the beginning of the year. I was part of that, but it's no longer it's no longer a center thing with this team. I think when Siakam's not rolling, they miss a go-to scorer. I think in general they miss spacing but defensively, Precious is the man. I love Precious. I think he's the center of the future.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
There was one quick one here. Why not more big lineups? I think with Maxey, Harden, it's just been too much.
They just
Too
don't
much
have the
speed.
shooting as well. Like they just don't have the shooting with those big lineups. You can't play like three non-shooters against, especially when the Sixers are showed they were willing to go zone instantly. The Raptors were rolling out those big lineups with no shooting, and the Sixers were like, "Yeah, fine, go ahead. You want to play all these big dudes who can't shoot? How about we go zone and force someone to shoot?" And it screwed them up.
I had a thought and it's gone because I got distracted by the porn stash question.
I've only been able to grow facial hair for like 2 years, so probably Adon.
Mine grows in 2
Probably,
hours, so.
probably Adon. I would say Adon. Would you throw Beal and a Max this offseason, dude? We got a whole offseason to think about that. I'm not. I'm so still focused on this series. Like I can't even process that
I
type of
would
stuff
not.
right now.
I would not because I'm already getting anxiety about paying OG again and Precious and eventually Scotty. So
Plus, we have Gary Trent Jr. He's like Beal with better fashion sense. Should we end on that? Do we play Scotty game 4 if he's 80%? Nurse said he's already playing. I think Scotty might be like 40% and he's playing. So
yeah,
there we go.
I mean, throw him out there, see how he moves. If it's trouble, just yank him. I mean, I wouldn't have played Gary last game, so maybe I'm conservative that way. But
yeah, I'm scared. Let's just close on because this is okay. Whatever we can think about moving forward in Game 4. I don't know if that's the best, just mental health wise. I don't know if that's the best option for us. But if the Raptors, hypothetically, if the Raptors don't win this series, who you got winning the finals? Like, who's your pick?
me?
Yeah. What if you're not on tomorrow and they lose, or what if you're not on Saturday and they lose? You never have the opportunity to make your selection.
And I
Although
can come
you
on
can follow
here
us both on
anytime and
Twitter.
just rant and rave if I
Yeah.
have to.
And you can follow us both on Twitter for the opportunity for all of our picks.
Well, I took a bracket and I took Bucks Warriors and then Bucks winning, so I'll stick to that.
Give me Phoenix. I'm
I'll
not
tell you
afraid
who
of.
I don't want winning, and it's goddamn Philadelphia. I'll tell you that much.
I think my hot take is that Brooklyn wins that series with Boston. I think
Wow.
they've looked pretty good in both games in Boston. I think I Kevin Durant has had bad second halves in both those games. They're gonna have a couple KD games. They'll win those two at home, and then there's still like that KD game 5. I don't know. I think Brooklyn wins that series in 6.
I think
And you can bet on it in score bet, probably. I don't know. I haven't checked it out. I assume you can bet that on score bet. So, guys, that's my official prediction: is that Brooklyn will win the Boston series in 6 games.
if Boston didn't have to run into Milwaukee, they would beat Miami and go to the finals. But I think Giannis is unguardable with that team. But we'll see. They are a very good team.
Okay. All right,
That's
guys.
it.
Thanks for having me. Hey, look, like and subscribe. Look, if this is the last time you see us for the year,
Well,
there's
no,
an
I'll be here
extra.
Saturday. Don't you worry.
Okay, I'll probably be here
And then we're
Saturday
gonna
too.
have Game 5 on Monday.
Yeah, we'll have game 5 on Monday, game 6 on Thursday, which is my birthday.
Oh,
And then I guess game 7, I would assume, on Saturday.
guys, the game is on or at 2 o'clock Saturday Eastern time. So no going out late on Friday. We all need to be sober and locked in here so that when you come here after and celebrate the win, we can tell all the naysayers in the chat how wrong they were and how we're coming back and being the first team in NBA history to come back from 3-0.
I
So
love that. I love
yeah,
it. I'm
well,
with it.
Phoenix is with us on that one. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Try and stay positive out there. We'll see you Saturday night. Don, my man, thanks for producing. Really appreciate it. Peace out, everybody.